Thank you all.
Thanks for being here, everybody, today. It's great to be at UNH, where I graduated in 1989 with an art degree, and then I turned into an entrepreneur, where I've run 2 successful companies in Portsmouth for over 25 years. Today, however, I'm here as a mom that has an 11-year-old, and I'm watching the college years and her tuition creeping closer every year. She's got a lot of passions and a lot of interests, and I really am thinking a lot about what it will mean for us as a family to pay for her education. Doug's representing the student, I'm representing the mom, but let me tell you, Doug and I got just so many great questions from this audience, and my goal, my hope is that we get through as many of them as possible. I'll ask the first question in a moment, but before I do, I just need to tell both of you how many love notes there were on the questions. It was something that I didn't expect, random I love yous and to both of you. So please know the audience loves you. I hope I have... And now for the first question from me and about my daughter Haley. How can New Hampshire's education system, K through 12 and higher ed, do a better job of aligning my daughter's interests with her future career?
Well, I'll take the first stab at that. Your daughter's name is Haley? Well, I think for me, we've got to start looking at education as lifelong learning. And that needs to start in the earliest years of life. If we do a better job of working with families, after all, families are a child's first school, and parents and grandparents are a child's first teachers. If we do a better job helping to encourage and model and support children from literally 0 to 5, and I support universal pre-kindergarten because the more opportunities kids have, the better. And in families like Mary Jo's or mine or Bernie's, you know, we really spend a lot of time talking to our kids, reading to our kids. Well, I want every family to understand that's literally building a child's brain. 80% of your brain is physically formed by the age of 3. It's also building a vocabulary which serves as the foundation for learning in school. So that by the time somebody enters public school, enters kindergarten, first grade, there's not going to be such a big achievement gap. Kids are going to have a better chance to begin that process of learning. I want kids in every zip code to have good teachers and good schools that are modern, that are up to date. And we have a big digital gap. You know, it's hard to think about aligning interests if you're in one of the 5 million homes in America that have no internet. And so we've got to do a better job of making sure every child has access to technology, because that is how people learn and how they get information today. And then we've got to be sure that in school we recognize not every child learns the same way. Right? Right? And you know, a lot of our schools and a lot of our teachers are really good at this. But unfortunately, in many places, there's an expectation that there's one way to learn, and I think there's been too many tests and not the right kind of tests to actually determine how people are learning and what they're learning. And because people learn differently, I think we made a mistake taking what used to be called vocational education, I call it technical education, taking it out of our high schools. We took it out, and that really sent a signal to a lot of our young people, well, hey, what they're interested in, what they're good at, how they learn is just no longer available to them. I'd like to bring back technical education into high schools. I would like to do more to connect our high schools up to community colleges so that while you're still in high school, you can even go to community college, you can get credentials, you can get credit for going to college. And I think if we recognize that each child really is unique and there are many different ways of learning, we can do a better job of aligning that, Mary Jo, and we can find out the talents. And I guess the final thing I would say is a lot of schools have lost so many of the extracurricular activities that used to allow kids to find themselves and express themselves. Theater and art, as well as technical education, have been eliminated from a lot of schools. And you know, kids learn through doing. Kids learn through music. Kids learn through art, through drama, through all kinds of other ways. And so making sure we have those opportunities for more kids, and then opening the doors to higher education. You know, we also want to make community college totally free. Community college, which should be the additional 2 years on top of elementary and secondary school, and then of course we're going to work to make sure that it's tuition free for as many American families and young people as we can reach. So I think if we begin to really look at this as a lifelong learning experience, and we have more on-ramps and off-ramps and return ramps so that even adults can go back and learn, and while they're learning maybe earn at the same time in apprenticeships and other training programs, we'll get a 21st century education program. And we need to do that because really the future is going to depend upon whether our young people have the skills and the education that they need.
There is not a lot that I can add to what Secretary Clinton said, because she's absolutely right. But let me just say this, that as a nation, we need to take a deep breath and ask ourselves a few questions in terms of children in general. How does it happen that we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth? How does it happen that working families in New Hampshire and Vermont are paying a very, very significant parts of their income for childcare or pre-K education, while at the same time the childcare workers are being paid minimum wage or not much more than that? And what that tells me, and what the Secretary was essentially saying, is we need to change our national priorities and know that the most important resource that we have as a nation are our children. And that they must grow up healthy, they must get the intellectual and emotional nurturing that they need. What the Secretary said is absolutely right. Every psychologist understands the most important years of human life are 0 to 4. And we have got to stand with the children, stand with the parents, and make sure that all of our kids get the quality pre-K and child care that they need. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll have our next question from Doug.
So this is a question from the audience. How will your plan affect current college students?
Well, as soon as we can get it passed, it will affect all students. And it will also affect debt that current college students are having to take on. Right now, we have so many students who are in the midst of their education. They're in college. A lot of them are working jobs to be able to afford to be in college, but they still can't get by, so they're taking on more debt. So in two ways, we're going to begin to reduce costs for everybody in college, about to go to college, and we're going to take on existing debt, because under our plan, there's not going to be future debt if we do this right. So that's exactly how I think it could make a big difference in the lives of students right now, and certainly those like Haley and others who are going to be coming up over the years.
Let me just add to that. I am a member of the Senate Health, Education, and Labor Committee, and this legislation will go through that committee. And I can assure you, make no mistake about it, that I will work with President Clinton to make sure that this legislation is passed as quickly as we possibly can. And to make that happen, we need your help. Politics and government issues do not stop on Election Day. We need your help and the help of the American people to help us stand to change national priorities. We need millions of people telling Congress that public colleges and universities must be tuition free. So we're going to work together on making that happen as soon as humanly possible.
Our next question from the audience for both of you is, how will the debt-free college plan affect private colleges versus public colleges?
Well, this is a very important question. The way our college system is set up, states have responsibility, as you know, for funding public colleges and universities. Now, both public and private colleges and universities get some federal aid. But our challenge is how we first deal with public colleges and universities in terms of making it tuition free. And we also have more leverage because, as Bernie just said, it's not only putting pressure on the Congress, we also have to put pressure at the state level. Because why are we in the situation we find ourselves today when it comes to public colleges and universities? In part because states have cut back on their contributions to public colleges and universities, which in turn has forced boards of trustees and administrators to raise tuition. So this is a partnership. We are setting this up to work with states and to make it clear it's kind of carrots and sticks, that states that are willing to work with us to increase their contributions will be rewarded by this program. And states that are not, we think, will be under political pressure to do that. The private schools will benefit directly from the debt repayment programs. Because if you go to a private college or university and you take out debt, you take it out from the same programs, from government programs, from private programs. So students will be benefited directly in that way to get existing debt paid down. Now, ultimately, I would also like to see private colleges and universities taking a hard look at their costs. I mean, we hope that this will launch a serious discussion about what are the most important parts of a college experience that should be supported both in the public and the private systems. And that everybody, people in administration, people who are alumni, everybody will say, hey, let's try to prioritize here about what it is we need to invest our money in. And we think that will help begin to reduce costs on the private side as well. But private college and university students will absolutely benefit from paying down and refinancing and getting out from under student debt.
Thank you. Doug has our next audience question.
All right, so this is also from the audience. How will your plan help those who have double-digit interest rates?
Well, I think, as the Secretary and I have both said, it is absurd that right now there are people in this country paying 10% interest rates on their student debt when you could refinance your home for 3% or buy a car at 2%. Makes no sense at all. So what this plan says is you can go out and refinance your debt at the lowest interest rates you can find. And this will mean for many, many people a substantial reduction in their interest rates and significant reductions in what they have to pay off in terms of their debt.
Absolutely. Now, I want to just add to what the senator said, that we are going to end the federal government making money off of lending money to students to get your education. And we think if the federal government's going to be involved, it ought to be a sort of revolving fund, paying out without making money off of it, and then as it's paid back at low interest rates, paying out again, keeping the virtuous cycle going. But I know, you know, Senator Sanders and I had exactly the same experiences out on the campaign trail. I mean, I would say to groups like this, who has student debt? In fact, let's do this right now. Who has student debt? Okay, look at all those hands. Does anybody here know, do you have an interest rate, let's say 8% or higher? Okay, look at all those hands. We've had, in effect, 0 interest rates for 8 years. It's outrageous. And it's really so unfair. It makes me furious that young people and their families have been told the only way they can borrow money to go to college, that's really their collateral. They're signing up, they're doing the work, they're trying to get ahead, but the only way they can do it is to sign up for loans 8, 10, 12%. I think the highest I ran into, Bernie, was 14%. And I just, my heart broke for this young woman because she's going to be paying that back until she's a grandmother. And that is just so wrong.
You know, when I was here in New Hampshire, I don't know if anybody in the audience is having this experience. I ran into a woman. She said, Bernie, I'm not just paying off my kids' student loan, I'm still paying off my own student loan. Now, the secretary made a point earlier, which, as politicians do, is worth repeating. When you are faced with huge debt and high interest rates, you need to go out and get the job that pays you the most money, not the job that your heart wants you to do. Give you an example. We have a desperate need on another issue that the Secretary and I have worked on is primary care in this country, expanding community health centers. All right? We have a serious crisis in terms of primary health care where even people with insurance can't find a medical home, can't go to the doctor they need. We need tens of thousands of primary health care physicians. And there are many young people who would love to do that work. But you know what? It doesn't pay as much as other types of work in medicine. So you have people who want to be primary care physicians, can't do that. Can't be dentists in underserved areas working at a community health center because they're paying off $300,000 in debt for a dental school degree. And that is why this issue is so important. It frees people up to do what needs to be done, to do what they want to do, not just go out and get jobs to make as much money as they can to pay off those debts. That's a big deal.
So we, unfortunately, only have time for one more question. And I want to reiterate, the questions from you as an audience are incredible and diverse and impressive. So I hope this is the beginning of the discussion. Doug, as the student, I think I should give you the honor of asking the last question.
Sure.
With the $33,000 in debt, I think. Was that right?
What was that?
Wasn't it $33,000 in debt?
Yes, I don't like to be reminded, so. How do you plan on making college cheaper for both in-state and out-of-state students?
Well, the tuition-free plan will apply to public colleges and universities no matter where the student comes from. And I think that I think that has a couple of consequences. You know, because tuition has increased so much, a lot of colleges, public colleges and universities, have been recruiting not just out-of-state students, but out-of-country students, because they will pay so much more. That then reduces the number of in-state students whose families have lived here, have paid taxes here, and thought they would go to their state college or university. So part of what we hope will happen here is that there will be actually more room in the public colleges and universities for in-state students, and then whatever the percentage is for out-of-state students, it will not have the kind of impact that would decrease the number of in-state. Because if you're trying to figure out how to get to that budget, you're going to be looking for people who pay more, and that's usually out-of-state and even out-of-country people. But I just want to finish an additional thought about Bernie's last point. The way that refinancing will work is we're going to get the interest rates down, and then we're going to provide every student who will take it, and I hope it's every student, the chance for an income repayment plan, like what I was talking about that I had, so that we get the cost down. You reduce that interest rate, you bring it down so that your overall costs will be less over the life of paying it back. And then we put you in a program where you pay it back as a percentage. I mean, this is really personal to me, because the only way, since I was out on my own and I didn't have any big financial cushion and my dad was unable to help me, I would never have been able to go to work for the Children's Defense Fund, which has given me the greatest joy and sense of mission in my life, if I had not been able to pay it back as a percentage of my income. Just like so many of my other friends, they got out of law school, they went to big law firms. Whether they wanted to or not, they had to in order to pay back their loans. So we think this will be liberating and empowering. And remember, I also said, we want to provide loan forgiveness, not just reducing the interest rates and providing income contingency programs, but loan forgiveness for public service and national service. That's the way it used to be, and that's the way we want it to be again for students today and students tomorrow.
Let me just say this. Today we talked about an enormously important issue, and that is making public colleges and universities tuition free. That's just one issue. We have got to transform our energy system and effectively combat climate change. That's the future of this planet. We have got to rebuild a crumbling infrastructure. We've got to raise the minimum wage to a living wage. We have to have pay equity for women. We need immigration reform. We need to reform a broken criminal justice system. Those are all of the issues that we are dealing with. We are. What Secretary Clinton says, it's not the next 4 years, it is the next 40 years. And let me close on how I began. If we were a poor country, this would be a very different discussion. We would say, gee, we wish we could make public colleges and universities tuition free. We just can't afford it. We wish we could rebuild our infrastructure. We just don't have the money to do that. That is not the case. The case is that you got the Koch brothers and Sheldon Adelson and other billionaires trying to buy this election to protect their interests. What this campaign is about is protecting our interests. And let's get out and vote and make sure that this is the next president of the United States.
Thank you, everyone. Stronger together, learn more, and vote. And don't just you vote. Bring 3 friends to vote. Thank you for being here.